Great day, beautiful people. This is Prophetess Elisa,
And Pastor Cobb.
and this is another week of our quarter three strands small group. We are excited and honored to be with you this week. We had about a 2 week sabbatical.
Well, I wouldn't say a sabbatical. It was working, so it wasn't sabbatical. Was like work, but it was
Well, oh
really
yeah,
working.
that's
So
true. That's
we
true.
just had a lot come up on us that we had
Yes.
to do. So we had to prioritize a little bit. Not that this is not important, but we had some things that were out of state and,
Yes. So we got to have
and
some.
across the waters.
Yes, and across the waters, we got some amazing opportunities. I know I had the opportunity to spend about 5 days, 5 days, oh Jesus, I can't talk, 5 days in
Mm-hmm.
prayer, intense prayer and training and equipping in Gatlinburg, did I say that right? Tennessee.
I don't know if you
Um,
said it right or not. We'll go with it.
and with my mentor, um, with at least 30 other believers tapped in, ready for the next level in God, looking for, desperate for deliverance and breakthrough, ignition of gifts. And it was really amazing. And we also are planning, it's not quite boots on the ground
Right.
time. For those of you that follow us with RGMI, um, Revival Gospel Ministry International, affectionately known as RGMI. We have a period in October when we are stateside anyway, based stateside, that we go and check on the affiliate ministries there in Johannesburg, both Johannesburg, South Africa, and Durban, South Africa, as well as in Malawi. And so we knew that we were going to have to um, get back Africa side
Yes.
within the first quarter for some things that we have in the works,
Mm-hmm.
but we needed to make a intentional trip sooner rather than later. One, looking at some things that we have in development there for ministry, and then
Mm-hmm.
also um, strategizing and connecting for our boots on the ground time when our entire team will go in October. So while we did miss our time here with you, we just had to restructure a little bit,
Yes.
and but we still had areas where you can tap in.
Mm-hmm.
You have the mighty men of valor, still
Right.
chugging along and connecting and growing. I've seen some new faces and some new emojis from some new people in there, as well as the women's ministry, the Complete Women Fellowship. We also had our first
The
virtual
youth.
meetup for Joel Army
Mm-hmm.
Rise
Yeah.
last week. So um, we are moving about, and sometimes when you have these different auxiliaries and different things that where you're trying to meet the need of the people, um, sometimes you may not quite meet the mark, even though you're striving to meet the mark.
Well, the thing is we're when we minister on our platform, we minister to the body at large and whoever would like to peek in, but then we break those groups down. That should I say the assembly down to marriage, specific things to marriage, specific things to the youth that you don't get in the general assembly where you just preaching or you at pastor parables. So then there's particular things that you want to reach out to. You want to be able to ask questions. We want to be able to ignite fires where there's no fires. If it's cold in that area, we want to ignite it. And so that's why those groups are for men and for women, not to be separate, but to understand that there's particular roles that the institution of marriage that God created for the role of the man and the woman. And then he just made different roles for the men and women, even if you're just single. And so we try to tap into those things in particular. So when we come together, our group is whole, and we don't have all these separate priests saying, hey, we needed a class on this, we need a class on that. So we're trying to touch the whole environment and moving forward. I would say that we'll be in delving into classes dealing with economics and getting into the workplace. You're like getting your own business, and that's going to constitute reaching out to other people to draw them in, because when people, Bible says, when you steal no more. Well, then you're going to have to be able to eat some kind of way, and we want to be able to put some skills in your hand or give you a job where you can continue on with your living and your life. And so those are things we're looking at. Everything that affects our life and our living, that's what we want to deal with.
Yes. I had one route in mind regarding this week's lesson, and it's so many different ways that we could, I guess, approach this conversation. However, I think I'd rather go the route of, especially it's the end of March now, right? Going into April. My
Mm-hmm.
goodness, already first quarter of 2026 is over, basically.
Yes.
Um, and while we've done a lot of talking about the spiritual components of things, it's all spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes it's good to have a more practical, top heavy layman's language.
Okay.
Um, I was, I was, I was kind of not contemplating, but thinking over a conversation we had this week, having the opportunity in my profession to talk to people, as do you in your profession, where it's you come together for one thing, but a lot of times you start talking to people about personal things, and they feel, albeit just the Spirit of the Lord allows them to be free and
Mm-hmm.
talk, or just they feel comfortable and they're able to share. And we get the opportunity, the most humbling experiences, to really see these people in a very transparent and raw
Right.
light,
Right.
and to minister to them. And while they may never attend the church or anything else, in that moment, we get to witness to them about,
Plant seeds.
yes, plant seeds, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, even when I'm working, I'll call you, or you'll be on your way, but like, hey, can I borrow the pastor? Can I borrow the pastor for a
Where
minute?
you at?
So that because you have that pastoral anointing on you, where I feel like I have one way of looking at things and saying things, and oddly enough, sometimes I think I'm so rough, but usually they're like so receptive. But I think that by the time maybe they get to me, it's been such a ruckus the enemy has caused
Mm-hmm.
in their life,
Mm-hmm.
that truth is almost, it's like soothing, it's like salve, right?
Yeah.
But then I'm always very cautious that that pastoral piece is needed, that anointing of shepherding, and the words, that it could be the almost the exact same thing. Many times you'll come and say exactly what I said, but there's some added piece, and how you say it, how you deliver it, it connects
Mm-hmm.
deeper. Um, and many times, like, we'll have the opportunity to reconnect with those people. I feel like, because of kind of like
Right.
that, those giftings working
Mm-hmm.
together. And so, this conversation, we were talking about intimacy, which is not a conversation we haven't talked about before, but we're specifically dealing with sex and the
Mm-hmm.
lack thereof.
Yeah.
And so we have a Bible, a devotional Bible. It's called the Couples Devotional Bible, and while we don't go to it all the time, it's a really great resource, and it has some great, what I call, fuel for fire starters. And we usually actually keep it in our bathroom, because I think it's great, like, quick information when you're looking at it, and to help you grow.
Mm-hmm.
And so, thinking about the conversation with this young lady and the lack of intimacy, specifically sex, within their relationship,
Mm-hmm.
with her husband, I came across this, and I wanted to read it. And then it shares a scripture, which will be our foundational text for today, 1 Corinthians 7 and 5, which I'm sure you'll bless us with reading. But I'll read this first, And then
Okay.
we'll go into our fire starters, or they call it a marriage builder, but I think it's great. It's great fuel for a fire starter. It says
Mm-hmm.
men and women bring two different sets of expectations to the way they view sex. And studies indicate that a woman's libido rises and falls according to her 28-day ovulation cycle. The typical male, on the other hand, has sexual thoughts every few minutes. The author says, I tell couples, women especially, that sometimes they will need to offer the gift of availability to their spouse out of love and sensitivity to their partner's needs, according to 1 Corinthians 7 and 5, is what he's
Mm-hmm.
using. It says most women place a higher priority on romance and affection than men do. Not that men don't want these things too, it's just that they don't usually rate them at the top of their needs list. And both approaches are valid. The senior pastor of our church, says the author, used to describe sex like eating. Sometimes you sit down to a gourmet feast with candlelight, soft music, 7 courses. Other times it's a snack on the run. Neither would be healthy all the time. Spouses need to be realistic about their sex life and willing to accommodate each other's desires. Granted, not every sexual experience is going to be equally satisfying and fulfilling for both parties, for both partners, sorry. But good communication helps ensure that you know what your spouse wants in bed, and it keeps sex from becoming mechanical. Um, Before we get into the marriage builders or our fire starter, um, let's hear 1 Corinthians 7 and 5.
Okay, I'm going to move up a couple of verses. So I'm going to start at verse 3.
What version are you reading?
I'm reading the King James Version. I can switch after I read
Okay.
that and go to another one because I think King James Version makes a good point here
Mm-hmm.
about inconsistency that I want to speak on a little bit, maybe, perhaps, maybe not. Let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife unto the husband. The wife hath not power of her own body, but the husband. And likewise also the husband hath not power over his own body, but the wife. Defraud ye not one another, except it be with consent for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your inconsistencies.
Mm-hmm.
Let's try another. You want to do the Passion or you want to do a Living
Let's do
Translation?
Passion
Okay, let's
Translation.
try the Passion. Verse 3, and husbands has not responsibility. Uh, no, a husband has a responsibility of meeting the sexual needs of his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. Neither the husband nor the wife have exclusive rights to their own bodies. Wow. But those rights are to be surrendered to the other. This is our key verse. So don't continue to refuse your spouse those rights, except perhaps by mutual agreement for a specified time so that you can both be devoted to prayer. And then you should resume your physical pleasure so that the adversary cannot take advantage of you because of your desire of your body.
Hmm.
The desires of your body.
Okay. I actually have an additional verse here that it has as a complementing verse,
Mm-hmm.
Proverbs 5,
Okay.
18 through 23. I'll read it in the King James Version. Um, it says, Let not, let thy fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of thy youth. Let her be as the loving hind and pleasant roe. Let her breast satisfy thee at all times, and be thou ravished always with her love.
Mm-hmm.
And why wilt thou, my son, be ravished with a strange woman, and embrace the bosom of a stranger? For the ways of man are before the eyes of the Lord, and he pondereth all his goings. His own iniquities shall take the wicked himself, and he shall be holden with the cords of sin of his sins. He shall die without instruction, and in the greatness of his folly he shall go astray. Ravished. Sorry.
Well, uh, if I could start, if I mean, one of the things that we don't look at when we look at scripture a lot of times is the benefit and the completeness of how God designs a thing, and for you to go beyond those borders is to basically say to God that it's not enough. What you gave me is not enough. So we have to follow His way and not what we feel, and bring in things which is like this word called adulterated, which is to add something that shouldn't be, because it says to ravish her and to be like this is my number one. And why would you take all of that energy and put it somewhere else? Well, it's not because something that we think of and that we so in love and this and that. It's because some things are just simple as it is that God created it and we have to follow His blueprint. And if you do anything other than His blueprint, it's going to come out to naught.
You know, I one of the things that's interesting is that when we hear there everything that you need,
Mm-hmm.
practical life, spiritual things, it's in the word, right? One of the things that I find interesting is that we don't see anything in regards to intercourse per se,
Right,
outside of
right,
knowing
right.
that Adam and Eve. When I
Mm-hmm.
say, when I let me rephrase, let me start over. We do not see anything in regards to intercourse per se, or intimacy,
Mm-hmm.
maybe at first glance, with the initial language within the creation story,
Right.
outside of God Himself and how He viewed man. We see that there, and how he interacted even in the time of discovery, or the revealing
Mm-hmm.
of the fall of the first Adam and Eve. And then we know they had offspring. So of course they
Right.
had they
Mm-hmm.
they they had
They came
intercourse,
together.
right?
He knew
Yeah,
her.
he knew her, right? However, we have these scriptures like this
Mm-hmm.
that talks about pleasure. We
Mm-hmm.
have the
Right.
Songs of Solomon
Yes.
that talks about, we this using. I've seen shows where they'll read verses out of the Song of Solomon
Right.
and ask the people where they come from, and they think it's like some, adulterous book or smut.
No.
But no,
Mm-mm.
it's straight language
Right.
out of the word.
Right.
And so it's passion there. It's like here ravage, like you just all up on that thing.
Yeah.
Not you biting.
Solomon, that's my kind of man.
um and and then we also see, you know like in stories where people are so smitten or
Mm-hmm.
taken by just the glance of their beloved that they cry.
Yeah.
you know
Mm-hmm.
um they adore the other, and their partner, and all of these, I think, they all show different facets of what, no doubt, leads up to sex,
Mm-hmm.
either before or
Right. Right.
after.
Right.
The
Right.
coming together, the infatuation,
Mm-hmm.
the excitement, the passion, um, all of those things. We see adultery.
Mm-hmm.
We see all of these different facets. But what I think is important is that, when we look at these verses, we take time to see ourselves in those verses. Not so much that each one, like, sometimes I would think about that, like, why don't we know what it was like for that, like, this is the first knowing with Adam and Eve, like, to know what that was like, to have had
Mm-hmm.
language about what that was like. But God didn't see fit that that needed to be in there. All you
Right.
needed to know is they knew each other because
Mm-hmm.
babies came,
Right.
right? It was more important to know those initial offspring, murder came from that, or somehow jealousy came in,
Mm-hmm.
envy, whatever, pride came in, and that resulted in the first murder. But that wasn't what God saw fit to focus on. But then we have these other verses that does give us so
Mm-hmm.
much insight.
Yeah.
And so for the fire starters, when it talks about how do expectations about your sexual life seem to be different from those of your spouse, when we see in the conversation that the author's pastor would refer to it like eating out, that
Okay.
sometimes you're going to have, all the wine and dine, all the stops, the music, the nice restaurant, the expensive meal, all of
The
those
low
things,
lights.
the low lights. And other times it's just like, we just going to get this. I'm not going to say Mickey D's because I can't stand that, but that's really not good for you. Like, we're just going to get this Whataburger and keep it moving.
That's funny.
Yeah, and it's sex like that too. Sometimes it's like we're not even touching that. And there
Yeah.
are things that, yes, the marriage bed is not defiled, but they're all corruptible things and stuff that, like,
Mm-hmm.
just don't. It
Right.
exists,
Mm-hmm.
but not for you, not for us,
Okay.
right? Um, that you don't always equally get satisfied.
Right.
Or it caught my attention when it says that sometimes wives, they have to offer the sacrifice of, was it availability, the gift of availability.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know, and it might be vice versa. Like the woman may have a higher sex drive or a need, but innately men tend to, they they need to be fulfilled sexually more often. And a lot of times you hear women communicate that, well, oh, he just wants his sex. That's just, you can't ever just be with me and not want it to lead to sex. Why can't it be? And the reason why I said in the beginning, it's a lot of different ways that we could approach this, but this is kind of where I wanted to sit. And I brought up February, like, yeah, this might have been real like cliche if it was February, you got
Right.
Valentine's Day and all these things, but it's after Valentine's Day. It's going into Easter and April and all of that. And no doubt that may have been like one of those big times, but it's this time from March through to next January
Mm-hmm.
that somebody or a couple somebodies maybe didn't have a really good Valentine's Day because they missed these conversations for all that time leading up to that. You don't just all of a sudden jump in and then, I mean, we don't celebrate Valentine's Day because it's a pagan holiday anyway. But we understand that nationally, at least in the States, it's seen as a day of passion and a day that lovers come together and all these things. And it is a thing
Mm-hmm.
that after that time, like the day is long gone, but the sting of that kind of, that peg in the board, that's the day, like where you are, that is a day that will kind of tell you where you are. If you're healthy and you get it all the
Right.
time, it's not a big deal, because it's like we got stuff going on, we're together all the time, it's no big deal. It's like we say all the time, like all these gift givings and birthdays and all this stuff, we love on each other all the time.
Right.
So while I probably am more of the gift giver, like I'm like, hey, like, because I'm excited, like, what is it? But it's not like the world's going to end because I didn't have something that you had just gave me 15 things the last 2 months, but my birthday came and you didn't give me anything. No, because that's not how we do things.
Right.
But just like that is indicative of the relationship and how
Mm-hmm.
you honor each other and how you do things, or perspective, right? We saw perspective.
Right.
That day is also indicative of kind of the temperature of your relationship there. Um, when I know I used to feel like that, in my, at times in my, at least in my prior marriage, um, like it was like you almost can feel like if there's not understanding of this, and there's other things that can bring it up too, right? And we don't have the time
Mm-hmm.
to go into all this, and maybe we have to keep unpacking this topic, but it is a place where if you don't have that understanding, especially in a newly married couple, that need is there. and understanding that God gave men that need. Now, um, how you steward that and how you come together to steward that
Right.
is a part of that knowing, and that when we talk about the cord of three strands
Mm-hmm.
coming together,
Yeah.
having that communication, and even if it's just biblical understanding.
Right. Well, the ironic part about it is we talking about coming together and spending time. Your body is not this one, and doesn't belong to the wife, so she don't control him, or he don't control her by her body, or not the lack thereof. Because when you talk about self control, which one of these translations talked about, it's not necessarily overly when we say control. Self control is when people overly do. But what about the self control when you don't do? Because it's telling you, and then one, I was trying to remember where that one scripture is. Is once um, you agree to the fast, to abstain from one another, to spend your time with God that you need, and once that time is over, you immediately go back to your spouse. And so there should be some consistency in what we do. But before we even get to that, here's the part that's amazing: is how do you treat that one, your husband or your wife, before you even get to the bedroom? That's what make the bedroom so sweet. Is how you treat them all day. Not that you just show up and say your body is mine, give it here, and then you didn't have no pleasant words for
Ugh.
her all day long, and she didn't have any pleasant words for you all day long. You didn't make her feel like that you respected her more than that. The sum total of who she is or he is just the act of sex. Like, give me your vagina, give me your penis, and that. No, it's the sum total of who you are, and that should be demonstrated throughout the day, so that when you get to the bedroom, there's some excitement, and there will be some consistency. Now, everybody's life is different. Like you said, sometimes you can sit down and have a long meal, and that's great. Like that's real good. Where you could everybody's taken care of, everything's taken. And then sometimes you gotta eat on the run, like boom, boom, boom. Let's.
And a thought that just came to me, or a
Mm-hmm.
visual that just came to me, if you really think about it, when you're at a meal like that, like we like the keg, right?
Mm-hmm.
We haven't been in a lit. We've been kind of put ourselves on a break.
Yeah.
But when you go on a meal like that, you sit, the meal is spread, you order what you want.
Mm-hmm.
One meal might take a little longer to prepare than the other, so
Right.
there's that patience. Like one may be
Mm-hmm.
eating the salad or the hors d'oeuvre or
Right.
the
Right. I
appetizer
was about to say.
while the other's meal is waiting. Maybe the other didn't need an appetizer or hors
Mm-hmm.
d'oeuvre, but they wanted a drink and they wanted to
And
sip.
sometimes you say, "Man,
And
I better slow down on these appetizers because I
I'm
don't
gonna
want to
fill
be
up.
full
I'm gonna be full.
for the
I'm
main
not
course."
gonna be able to eat my
Right.
food. Or you order something that you really like, but you already know this is
Mm-hmm.
too much. I can't take all of
Right.
this,
Right.
but I'm gonna have some of this for later. And then as you sit and you have that really nice meal, it's a volley. One is eating, one is
Mm-hmm.
drinking, one is sipping, one is chewing. One is the other is still eating, but you're talking, and the other is not as engrossed in eating or drinking. They're just
Mm-hmm.
sitting and they're allowing their food to digest a little bit. And I love that analogy when he talked about eating, because at first when he said it, I was like, but then as I sat with it, I was like, you're right, because intimacy is like that. When we
Yeah.
start talking about things like foreplay, or we talk about, especially with women, that they need to be stimulated mentally, that is all a part of
Mm-hmm.
that meal, right? And when it talks about the snack, well, in either instance you're eating, and you need a hunger to be filled.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still certain rules of engagement, one as married couples in Christ, but also just as believers, and serving each other. And so just like if we eat healthy, and we don't eat at McDonald's,
Mm-hmm.
it's some things that just not on the table, and it's
Right.
no reason for the discussion. But if you haven't had said discussions and you don't
Right.
know
Right.
that that's off the
Mm-hmm.
table, that creates conflict and friction
Mm-hmm. Right.
in your bedroom, in your intimacy, just like it would in eating. When the other one's trying to go to McDonald's and you like, wait, what? Why are you eating that? Why do you even like that?
Right.
And I didn't know that you like that.
Right.
And no, you're not gonna get me to like that either. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
What about we can talk about, of course, there's life changes and hormones and duties and different schedules and all those things. But I think for this to round this out as a good fire starter is, what about when you just simply don't know what you like?
Right.
Especially if, whether you were married before
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't a godly union in totality, and maybe there was mixture there, and it might
Yeah.
have been a fight.
Yeah.
Like, and what does that look like? Well, you had to be very guarded. You couldn't
Mm.
be free, because it's like,
Right.
well, the
Right.
other party's trying to get you to do things that are against your faith, or you feel conviction over. um, Maybe there was abuse, and so therefore you couldn't be light and airy and open,
Mm-hmm.
and you felt ravaged, and you couldn't and it was that wasn't a good thing, right?
Right.
So what about then, when you don't know what you like, you haven't been that space hasn't been made to feel safe, and maybe now you're in, or you've never had that, but
Mm-hmm.
you don't know enough. Maybe you were virgins. You did it
Right.
completely God's way. You came in and you know you're supposed to explore and all these things, but now you're discovering these things that you've never talked to anybody else about. You don't know how to say I like this or I don't like that. You don't want to offend, right? Or maybe the other one doesn't know how to take or
Right.
receive what's being said.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you like, I like that thing and I want you to put it on me rough. Like and you don't know how to say that. Like, what about then?
Well, I would say that it starts with everything, anything else. Not that it's a problem, but when you engage in something, you have to be honest. If you're not honest, it comes back later, and whatever you're saying that's not the truth, or the lack, or should I say, half truth, where you're not telling everything, right? Because you don't feel comfortable. So you can start out just being honest and say, "Hey, look, I feel some kind of way like this. I don't feel this thing that you're supposed to feel with love. I get nervous, and the nervousness is not because I don't know what I might to expect. It's nervous because I'm scared that I'm going to be used." And you put all that out on the table, and then hopefully, well, that your spouse will understand, and that will spark the conversation on. Okay, well, let's start with touch. Like, if you don't know what touch you like, then we'll start. Let me just touch you how I feel I should touch you, and then you tell me what's good and what's bad.
Mm-hmm.
You tell me how to touch here, or tell me how to touch here, and touch this way or that way. Tell me how to kiss. Do you want a dry kiss, a wet kiss, a long kiss, or you want 5 pecks or 2 pecks? What makes you feel good? My neck, my collarbone. So then when you get in those discussions, right, already you're above the grade of most marriages, even in the church, because there's assumption. It wouldn't be fair to you to assume that you're going to be the same type of woman as my ex was, or if you had a sexual experience before your wife, to know that, or just whatever you may have read in the book. Maybe you haven't had sex at all and you don't know what to expect from it. Then you start in with the conversation and saying, well, what do you like? How do you like to be touched? How do you like to be viewed? Because I don't want you to feel like when we finished that you were just an object and all I wanted was your kitty or whatever. And then how does that balance out? Well, that balances out because you put everything in perspective by being honest. You start out by being honest, completely honest. And you take it a little bit at a time. You don't have to deal with everything in a day. And I think a good thing too is not to talk about it while you engaged or about to engage. I think the thing is to start out before you engage. Like I said, what do you do before you get in the bedroom? Then when you get to the bedroom, you have like a roadmap to start. And then as you engage, you can have conversation then, but the conversation won't be awkward where somebody's feeling like, oh, wow, all
Mm-hmm.
that I did for the last 20 minutes was like, you was like, I don't like all of that,
Right.
you know?
Or even like if you what if you're like you're not fulfilled?
Right. and then
Like maybe
you have to
one
express
takes
that.
longer
And here's
than
the
the
thing. Here's
other.
a big thing that's very significant as you get older. Medically, maybe you can't perform. Maybe you can't do a thing or something, but that's where it comes in when you talk and when you speak, because God is the one who instituted. And then there's things that you have to do. You have to discipline yourself how you eat and how she cooking. If she's cooking food or he's cooking, you have to start changing your diet so that
Mm-hmm.
your body can reflect what you want it to do. And it's not going to do that when you put in a bunch of toxins in your body. So you have to be conscious of that and understand that. That's why a lot of things change from the time you get from 20 to 40. And then the other thing is your mindset changes too, because as you're young, your body is geared to, you're excited and you can go at it. You can keep going at it because the whole idea is your body is doing biological things like producing children. That's something that it does. When you get a certain age, you pull back from that because now there's other stages that you get into in life, and so there's a lot of things that happen with that. Everybody don't perform. Maybe you had an injury that causes you not to, or whatever. But those are things that you
Or
talk
maybe
about.
there's abuse,
Yeah, that
history
too.
of
That
abuse,
too.
history of just all sorts of
Mm-hmm.
things. You never, maybe you were made to by a parent. You
Mm-hmm.
were made
Oh
to
yeah.
feel ashamed,
Right.
or you grew up in a family you just didn't talk about those sorts of things.
Right.
You don't even
Yes.
know. I mean, these are things that people don't even talk about. You don't even know what an
Right.
orgasm really
Yes.
is.
Right. 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 You'd be 50 years
You
old
don't
and
know
had three
that
children and be
there's
like, well, I
more
don't know
than
if that I experienced that.
a clitoral orgasm.
Right. Right.
There's other ways, and or you, understanding your anatomy. You never
Mm-hmm.
actually had someone to explore with you, um, or you know the biggest thing, if I said all the time, like these are the types of questions that I like the things I like to talk
Mm-hmm.
about with the Complete Woman Fellowship, because you go from this keep it holy and don't await passion before it's time, and then you get married, and then if you don't have these type of conversations, now you have people thrown into something, and yet like initially,
Right.
yeah, because the passion's there and you just woo, but after a while, even
and
going to the keg all the
and
time,
then
you're like, I'm tired of this steak.
right.
I want
Right.
some. It's hot and it's good and it's consistent and it's ready,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and but I'm tired of this. I
And
want
then
something else, and but you
sometimes
don't know.
sometimes it's how they talk about it. Like sex is you, this is this. They make it sound so nasty. So then when you get to it, you like, oh, well, I'm a little nervous. They make it. They don't keep it in context. They don't say it's not the act that's bad, it's the timing, like and the person you with. So you save that for your husband and your wife, and you want to make sure you prepared for that when you get to that point. So we don't want to get in something that we shouldn't, and then we produce things, whether it's a child or, like you said, abuse. You go somebody, they can take advantage of you. You just don't know what's on people's minds, things like that. So when
Or
you
you
get
got small kids in the
right,
house.
or when you get to it, right, when you get to it, when you actually get to it, your whole mindset is different because it's
Hmm.
not taught as a beautiful act, is
Yeah.
what I'm saying. So then you have to go back and you have to deal with those scriptures. You have to deal in your mind. Well, dang, I was always taught this. Don't do this, don't do that. Keep your dress down, keep your pants up, and then you may even be nervous to just be seen naked. By
Oh
your
yeah.
by your spouse, and so and sometimes for some couples, that's the way they do it. That's the way they do it. I'm not saying it's wrong because you do it, but you got to find out what works. And if it may be working for you, but you're not your own, like the scripture said,
Hmm.
or it may work for your partner. So you got to come together and say, you might not have even asked, like, is this really good for you? Or you just doing this? Well, I just did that because I didn't want you to feel some kind of way. I want to make sure you got yours. Well, what about you?
Hmm.
And then you have that discussion. So you could take that to extreme, but I don't care whatever your situation is. You got to start out with the truth and be
Truth
honest with
will
that.
make you free.
Yeah, that would change the whole game because when you start getting down to it and you have tried to compensate and then you weren't telling the truth, it's going to come out that you lied to your partner. It's going to feel some kind of way. Keep it safe, keep it good. Start out with the truth, And when you start out with the truth, it's just gonna blossom and grow from there. You don't have to backtrack and say, well, the last three things I said wasn't so. It was partially right because this or that, and then now they feel some kind of way. And if they had a trust issue, guess what's gonna happen? They're gonna start digging. They're gonna get the shovel and start digging back in that hole
Mm-hmm.
because you made them feel uncomfortable. We don't want that. We want to put the shovel away. We want to fill in the hole, and we want to grow and build from there. That's what we want to do, and that makes a fulfilling life. Not to mention all the other things that happen, because sex ain't the only thing, but it's very important, and it's important enough that it says even after you fast and you consult one another for that. So if your wife said, "Oh, I'm just going to do this because God leading me," okay, but you need to consult with your spouse too, because that's unfair to your spouse, vice versa. That you do that, and it'd be great that you do that together. Now you see, if you really look at this with open mind, you see that there's no separation because some people don't want to talk about sex in the church. But look how it talks about something as intimate as prayer and fasting. It tags it on to that. What does that tell you?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna put that amber there and let it burn a little bit, let it hit your wood and see what happens. And so that's what I'm saying. And then it also look when that scripture started out in chapter 3, verse 3, the man led the priest of the home. Now put that amber on there. Let that start a fire for you. So we just give you a roadmap, or we to go down the road of things that people are scared to talk about, people are scared to indulge in, because it's not a matter of us trying to tell you what's right or wrong, what you're doing in your bedroom. What we're saying is, if you start out with Christ and you do it the right way, and you stay within those boundaries, like I said, starting out, that it's going to be a blessing for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's because look at Song of Solomon, all that stuff he was talking about
Mm.
and all that stuff he was saying. He was like, okay, so everybody got their version of what that means, their interpretation of what that means. And how often do you hear somebody preaching from the Song of Solomon? Not very often, because people think that's the taboo because what they were taught, like almost like sex is wrong. God created it. He created everything. And so I don't understand why people have a hard thing with it, because I think the hard part is because there's so much perversion put on it that when people want to speak the truth, they scared, they tiptoeing because of this or that, and they want people to feel awkward. But you shouldn't feel awkward, and you shouldn't feel embarrassed to express how you feel, or to even have a discussion with your brothers and sisters. Because if you're doing it right, they need to know, because they could be doing it wrong, or they could try to figure out, well, what is it's not satisfying for me, and this and that. Because even when you eat your meals, just like the complications, even when you eat, if you've been busy all day, you didn't get to eat, you'll sit there and eat all the bread, and then you be full when your meal come. Right? It ain't nothing like having it fresh and hot.
Mm-hmm.
So then now you have to learn how to that self control again. What I'm saying, you got to learn how to dispense that and go a little bit at a time. You got to do that, and you can't just run in and just go boom, 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 and then you just ruined a good meal. You just ruined a good time, and your spouse is sitting there enjoying, and then you sitting there full, and you want to eat, but you can't because you got full on this bread, and you just kept chomping and chomping and chomping and chomping because you just felt hungry, and and that's another reason, a part of being inconsistent. So that means that there should be some consistency in what you do, how you do it, and there's a lot of variations. So you can't base it on someone else's consistency, but your consistency should be good, and it shouldn't be as much as you want to do it is great, but just know the lack is not good.
Yes.
That's for certain. The
Yeah.
scripture is letting you see that lack is not good.
In any
There's
capacity.
right. There's something
Exactly.
special about coming together with that type of closeness that has been so much. Is very beneficial to your marriage, and if you don't have that, you're missing something great. I think that's enough for right now. Maybe we have to revisit this next week. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think this is a place to talk about um, more in depth different
Oh,
facets
sure.
of this
Hmm.
because what was clear, the resounding message, even from, we had an awesome breakout session
Mm-hmm.
while in Tennessee with the married couples and the different things that were talked about. And this is definitely an area where families are being targeted in this area. The lack of safe
Mm-hmm.
spaces to have these types of conversations. And so I am not a tech head at all. Like, I love tech stuff
Mm-hmm.
and the aspiration of it and all the things it can do, but in terms of social media and all of that, I am not the best. I've been working along with our media team to be a little bit more robust, and the all we have so much awesome, I don't like to say content, but great teachings and things that
Mm-hmm.
can be shared and people want to access, and we're trying to work more diligently to get those things posted. But I really think that this is one of those series that I want to be diligent to even try to personally make sure that these, even if it's in bite size little consumable reels, to put these things on TikTok
Yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
to be diligent to link it back to the larger, the more complete recording, so that, because I want to hear those questions. I
Right.
want to hear,
Mm-hmm.
what things that you all are struggling with, even if you post it anonymously, even if you just do a voice note. I don't know, however it is, I really feel a burden for this, in this season, because sex is such an, it was meant by God to allow that cleaving together
Mm-hmm.
and the merging and the becoming one.
Mm-hmm.
That was what that was meant for.
Right.
And it also helps with understanding each other and deposits, and it's also the vehicle used for procreation and what
Mm-hmm.
you use
Mm-hmm.
to bring answers. Children are answers
Right.
to things that are going on, that is needed in the earth, and
Mm-hmm.
all of that is wrapped up in that intimacy, in the act of sex and that union of knowing each other. And so I'm looking forward to that. I'm also going to be launching a study for women becoming a daughter of order. I'm
Okay.
working on that. It's a personal assignment of mine,
Mm-hmm.
that the Lord downloaded to me while in Gaithersburg, and I don't think I'll ever forget. I called it. I don't know if that's disrespectful or not. But to me, I was calling it off-brand Disney, because it was like a Walt Disney World, but it was a little bit different, with all the critters and the gators and the bears roaming around, like for real, like real life bears, like walking around, like in front of the hotel, outside the lodge, just all everywhere. So I will never forget that place. But I hope that this teaching helped you. I'm looking forward to hearing back from you, your answers to these fire starters. When was your last time that you had a feast, or are you stuck on the snack? And are you finding balance between the two? I pray that you have a wonderful week, and until we meet again, God bless you.
Good night.